We are Sustainable Marine Energy, here to talk to you today about an interesting opportunity in the tidal energy space. I'm the Managing Director of Sustainable Marine Energy, and yeah, we've been going now since late 2012. We are a marine engineering company, and our whole focus is to deliver a commercially viable tidal energy system. I think there's been proof out there that tidal energy can be harvested at large scale. The challenge for the industry now is to deliver commercial viability. And our core product is called Plato. It's a platform technology, and our sort of mandate is to deliver the system to customers on an EPC basis, and other parties, generally industrials like Alstom or Shuttle, produce the tidal turbines. We provide the platform which gets it to the right place in the water column and delivers it cost effectively. In doing so, we radically reduce the cost of tidal energy, both in terms of the upfront investment, the operational costs, and we also have the benefit of increasing the yield. We've decided that we're going to walk before we can run, and so we're going, first of all, for community scale market. It's a scalable technology, but we see it makes sense to start small and learn along the way, and then scale up once we have the costs right. We're raising in our current round 1.1 million with approximately 300,000 sought from new investors. In terms of achievements to date, the first Plato prototype is built and is currently undergoing its stage testing. We have our second Plato, which will be our commercial demonstrator for the community scale market in design. It'll be delivered and installed early next year. We've had 3.5 million of grants awarded to us. 2.3 of that is remaining to draw down. We've had 1.7 million of equity funding prior to this round, and 2.9 million invested in the venture to date, or sorry, spent in the venture to date. We also have a partnership with a tidal turbine manufacturer, Shuttle, nice solid German Mittelstand company with 300 million euro turnover, and our first product will be with their turbines. We're final contract terms for our first project, which will be a 5-device project up in the Orkneys, approximately a megawatt. We've built a very strong management team, and we're starting to get some industry recognition. We're not the disruptive little boys on the side anymore. We won the winner, or we're the winners of the Best Technological Innovation Award at the Tidal Energy Awards late last year. And around this, as we've been developing it, we've built a very extensive IP portfolio. Just cover the management team very, very quickly. Myself as MD, Christoph Harwood is our commercial director, finance background. Andrew Hunt is our engineering manager, comes from designing and building subsea equipment for the last 16 years. And our marine operations manager, David Thompson, who's had 30 years in the game and very, very experienced delivering projects in tidal sites. So very well-rounded team for what we're trying to deliver. And the fundamental challenge that we're trying to solve is getting these turbines into the right place in the water column. And what we see is we don't want to be on the surface where we're going to get hammered by storms and waves. We also don't want to be down the bottom where the current velocities aren't very good. There is a sweet spot where it's not too hot, not too cold, the Goldilocks zone there. That's where we want to get to. And the big structures simply can't get there for a variety of reasons. And even worse, when you put a turbine onto a gravity-based structure, you end up using very, very expensive vessels from the oil and gas market doing heavy lifts. And this is not sustainable in any way, shape or form. We use tension and buoyancy to maintain the turbine in the correct position in the water column. We minimize the structures, I suppose, or make it as transparent to the flow as possible. We get it below the waves, we get it in the best part of the current. It's a much lighter structure, much more efficient, and everything is nicely kept in tension and stable. And we only have to use very small vessels to perform our operations that cost in the order of £2,000 to £2,500 a day instead of more like £250,000 a day. So our business model is to roll out our commercial demonstrator, the 200 kilowatt Plato, as a turnkey project, depending on the site and length of run, the infrastructure between 1 and 1.5 million a unit. We believe under 5 rocks of CFDs that will provide a 15% IRR to owners. We will provide these systems on an EPC basis and will provide ongoing marine operations and servicing, very much an Enercon type model if you like. Our customers, or the end project owners, will be project developers, so there's independent project developers out there, very credible, potentially investment funds, green utilities, private investors, and also communities. we fall nicely within that space. In terms of market rollout, we have built Plato number 1, the first demonstrator. We see that although the market is huge, we need to go about this in a very methodical, straightforward way. We're focused in on delivering Plato 2 early next year, and then building out our first site, which will be done in SPV. We have another 3 to 5 megawatt site in the pipeline following that, and inquiries for a number of other sites. But we're sort of focusing on trying to get the sites geographically close together so that we can continue to maintain and service them. Ultimately, we're looking at getting 20 units out there by the end of 2018, before we then scale up. In terms of our, I suppose, trading history and financial forecast, the story is pretty simple. It's been mainly grant as income, and alongside investor funds while developing. But we're now at that transition point with this first project where revenue will be coming into the company, and we see that it'll be cost of goods sold instead of development costs that are eating up down the bottom there. In terms of the use of funds, on this current round, it's a 1.1 million round. Up to 50% of the equity will be coming from a public sector fund. We've raised over 25% from our existing shareholder base, and so basically a quarter is what we're looking to bring in from new investors. These funds will be used to deliver the commercial demonstrator and to deploy our prototype in a grid-connected application on the site this year, and then build and deliver the commercial demonstrator next year. And the grant funding to match that at a very nice aid intensity rate is already in place. In terms of exit strategy, well, first thing I'd say on exit strategy, you have a lot of options if you build a sustainable business. So we're keen to get to revenue quickly and build a sustainable business. That gives us far more exit options. Ultimately, we see in terms of scaling up, it makes sense to probably to effect a trade sale to an industrial partner, and that is a path that has been well trodden. Historical values have ranged wildly from tens to more than 100 million in the space. Generally, all of those have been well pre-revenue, so we're hoping that having a bit of revenue coming in the door and actually showing that we can deliver a product would make a big difference there. So fundamentally, why invest in S&E? Well, the tidal energy industry is ramping up. There is a lot happening in the space, and although there's been some of the bigger boys exiting, that's also no surprise. There's a bit of shakeout happening right now, which is a sign that the industry is maturing and the first projects are actually coming online. There is a significant need within the industry to reduce costs and demonstrate that they can reduce costs, and we're helping to solve that problem. It's strongly supported by the government, and I think the current industry shakeout reflects the viability of our approach to the market and our model. We've made significant progress to date in terms of the partnership with Shuttle, getting our first prototype into test, getting our first site, first project. We've managed to get the grants there to support us through that journey, and we have an experienced and motivated team in place that's cracking on and doing the job. The exit route is pretty clear, and ultimately at this stage of the game, the technology risk is significantly reduced, and there's a very, very low market or adoption risk associated with it. So thank you for listening, and happy to take any questions.
Great. Thank you very much, Jason. Simon, do you want to take the first question?
Well, I've heard your excellent presentation before, and I suppose the main issue I have is how can you give comfort to potential investors that the system will be robust when it's in the water?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, so there's, I suppose, three things. When you're in the design stage, you are designing to standards, like as much as you apply to designing ships or designing oil rigs. So, for example, the structure on our prototype is designed to DNV's offshore structures guidelines. So that's exactly, and it's it goes through the same sort of through-built surveillance. So that's exactly the same you'd have as if you're designing a rig for the North Sea. Ultimately, long-term reliability is going to come with time in the water, and so you have to start. You make a bunch of, I suppose, when you're working with people like DNV, they're very, very conservative. So you make some assumptions about it has to survive a 50 or 100-year storm. You have to apply massive safety as a factor to all of your engineering. And actually that's one of the areas where the costs will come out. As you learn, you can actually start to refine the product. I mean, I think, although it looks a lot sleeker than some of the stuff, I think it's built like a Panzer tank at the moment, and would like to get a lot of the weight and a lot of that out.
questions, if that's okay. If you could talk more about securing sites, how much of a risk that is. And then the second one is, what are some of the areas where you still need to make progress before ideally the trade sale happens?
Yeah, okay. So to take the first one, sites, so let's talk in the UK context. The Crown Estate has run some leasing rounds already, and so there are some very large sites out there that are currently waiting for technology, and a lot of developers. I'd say the problem is not the sites are defined. People are sitting on agreements for lease, waiting for the technology because it didn't take off with the big guys in the utilities the way that they thought it was going to in 2006 and 2007 when the world was a very different place. So we don't see sites as an issue. There's a lot of them out there waiting for kit like this that works to get there. Also interesting, especially in the Scottish context, of course, is with Crown Estate then handing over seabed to Scotland. That's going to open up, hopefully, the opportunity for more community-scale sites without having to deal with the Crown Estate, because they are going to further devolve it to like the actual local administrations, like Islands and Islands. Sorry, your second one was about progress. Yeah. So fundamentally, it's about, people are going to want to see time in the water. They're going to want to see that you can repeatedly build these and install them for a fixed cost, and then they're going to want to see that you can service them for a fixed cost. And ultimately, that's what you see. You got to be able to do it a few times repeatedly and demonstrate that it's the process works.
Thanks very much, Jason. I think we better crack on.
Thank you.
But very interesting presentation, so thanks very much for taking us through that.